Welcome, everyone, to this devotional with Chaplain Dan. I'm Dan Bonner, and I am blessed to have you with us this morning. Today, I'm going to focus on what I see as the second nature of Jesus, who Jesus was in the most early of the Gospels, the Gospel of Mark. We talked in a previous devotional about how Jesus proclaimed himself, did not refute what others said at least, that he was the Messiah, the fulfillment of the Jewish law, and he came for the Jewish people, and implicitly for the Jewish people only. Jesus, let that be said, Jesus did not refute it. Born and raised in his human life a Jew, understandable. But as his ministry unfolded and he began to become aware, both hearing God and encountering a diversity of God's people in different communities across the Galilean area of Judea, he began to be clearer, that he was more than just the Jewish Messiah, that his calling had been to be what I want to reference today from Mark as the suffering servant. To be clear about this, as Mark is in his unfolding story of Jesus, the earliest written gospel, the most accurate of the four Gospels, I suggest, because it was written by people who actually heard direct witnesses of Jesus tell these stories. And like the game telephone, where you pass the message from one to another, to another, to another, and by the time you get around the circle, the message that comes out is totally different than the original message. Well, in this case, it's simply the first person in the circle talking to the second person. That's why Mark, I say, is the most accurate picture of Jesus. And yet, as I said, he gives several evolving definitions, expressions by Jesus himself and those who were immediately around him of who he was and what his ministry and his call was. The Son of Man. I want to read just two verses for you from the 8th chapter of Mark today, the 31st through, the 31st through the 33rd verses. The 8th chapter of Mark, verses 31 through 33. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering. Notice he introduces here for the first time in Mark a new title for himself. When he teaches and preaches, he begins his sermons and his teaching in the synagogues by saying, I, the Son of Man, have come today. very different than the Messiah. The Son of Man must undergo great suffering. And he was rejected, must be rejected by the Jewish elders and chief priests and scribes, the Jewish leadership. And he will and must be killed. After 3 days, though, he is to rise again. That's what Jesus said to his disciples here in the 8th chapter. Just as leaders were hearing this. He said this quite openly to the 12. But Peter took him aside and began to rebuke Jesus. But he turned and looked at his disciples. In other words, he turned away from Peter and looked at the whole group. Peter was scolding him, "Don't say that, don't say that. You'll get us all excited and confused. Don't say that." He looked at his disciples and he rebuked Peter openly, the leader of the disciples. He rebuked him and said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." What a strong rejection, chastisement of his leading disciple. "Get thee behind me, Satan, for you have set your mind not on divine things, but on human things." That last quotation from Jesus says it all. Peter, you, and because you're the leader, I'm sure in a way every one of the other 11 disciples and many, many of our growing band of followers believe that I am the Jewish Messiah. Jesus said, "Peter, shut up. Don't say that. Don't any of you say that." And that's why he repeated, "The Son of Man came not to fulfill Jewish, human, historic expectations only, but the Son of Man came to do what God intended for all of the people." I'm paraphrasing that last sentence. When he says, "You set your mind, Peter, on earthly things," he's saying the Jews who are all around us expect in earthly terms. They talk about it all the time. Humans talking to humans about the coming of the Messiah, and maybe it's Jesus. Don't say that, Peter. Don't say that, disciples. Rather, set your minds and hearts on divine things you see. And what I'm telling you is, I, Jesus, am going to be accused by the Jewish leaders, and they're going to have the Romans put me to death. But then on the 3rd day after my death, I will rise. I will rise, and it will be clear to everyone that I am the Son of the God who created each of us, all of us. Yes, the Jews, but also every Gentile tribe, family, and clan. Yes, Jesus claims to be this new term here, the Son of Man, all of men and women. We have a God who sent a Savior to save the whole world with his message and his redemptive power. That's a bigger Messiah than the Messiah of the Jews. That's a bigger Savior than the parochial notions of many of the Gentile sects. He is the Son of all men and women, come to offer salvation to us. Today, if you're having a bit of a down day, just remember the Son of Man came not just back then for them, but as risen and with God, the God who was and is and will be with us. Jesus is the Son of Man, the Son of all humanity, for us to draw on him, be comforted by him. He shall endure, and by believing in him, so shall we, so shall you. Thanks for being with me today. This is Chaplain Dan, wishing you a blessed rest of your day. And I'll be seeing you down the road to talk a little more about Mark's vision of Jesus, story of Jesus. I'll hope you'll join me again. Wesleyan community, God is with us. God bless you.